Welcome everyone to our panel devoted to the extremely important issue, namely the European security in different and multidisciplinary context. My name is Aleksandra Szczerba and I am representing, along with my colleagues, the Jacob of Paradies University in Gorzów Wielkopolski. We are very happy and thankful to the organizers for this possibility to be part of this great scientific event. Just to make things clear, unfortunately, I am unable to stay during the whole panel, and that's why I asked my dear colleague Oliwia Radkiewicz to replace me in the function of moderator. Oliwia, once again, thank you very much for handling this task. And so maybe you can take the floor right now and let's proceed along with the program. Unfortunately, right after my presentation, I need to leave the panel. So please forgive me. This is quite unusual situation for me that I need to leave earlier, but unfortunately, this will happen today. So please, Oliwia, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello. Good morning. I have the pleasure of moderating today's panel. I welcome all the speakers and attendants. I would like to start with some practical details. Our panel will until 10:30. So I kindly ask each speakers to keep to the allotted time. There will be time for questions at the end. Are all the speakers prepared? Shall we start, maybe? Okay.
Yes, definitely.
I will be the first, yes?
Who's going to be the first one?
I will be going first. I start?
Yeah, let's do it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. And wait a moment. Okay. Can you see my presentation? Maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I will begin with my presentation titled The Social Consequences of Climate Change as a Challenge to Ecological Security and NATO's Stability. Okay. Today I would like focus on how climate change has growing a global threat leads to serious social consequences that ultimately challenge both ecological security and the strategic stability of NATO. The topic is more urgent than ever as environmental disruptions reshape the world. They also reshape our security priorities. Let's begin by recognizing a fundamental fact. Climate change is no longer just an environmental issue, it's a security issue. Extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and resource scarcity are already destabilizing vulnerable regions. But behind these environmental indicators lie deep social disruption. Entire communities lose homes and livelihoods. Access to food and water becomes contested. Political tensions grow in fragile states, and most importantly, climate-driven migration accelerates. Climate change acts as what NATO call a threat multiplier. It exacerbates existing social, political, and economic vulnerabilities. Poor populations are hit hardest, lacking resilience. Developing countries face repeated setbacks from floods or droughts. This leads to competition over land and water, sparking internal or regional conflict, and ultimately this results in forced migration, social unrest, and even violent extremism. We've seen this the dynamic in the Sahel, the Middle East, and parts of South Asia, and NATO cannot ignore it. NATO's point out that climate change depends existing social economics inequalities, both between countries and within them. Low-income nations and communities are disproportionately affected because they often lack the resources needed for adaptation. They have limited infrastructure, their public health and emergency response systems are underdeveloped, which amplifies the long-term damage of climate-related disasters. Their economies, often reliant on agriculture, are highly vulnerable to climate disruptions. In contrast, wealthier nations and social classes have the means to shield themselves from many of the world's impacts through technological innovation, private insurance, system relocation options, strong governance, and early warning systems. Science, Science, its founding in 1949, NATO was a classic military alliance, but over the decades it has evolved. After the Cold War, it adapted to new threats, terrorism, cyber warfare, hybrid tactics, but in 2010, for the first time, NATO officially recognized climate change in its strategic concept. From that moment on, the issues of climate gradually begin to take more prominent place on the Alliance agenda, highlighting the need to adapt its structures and strategies to the rapidly changing global conditions. However, for the context of my presentation, the most important are three reports, which were published in accordance with the Climate Change and Security Actions Plan. This report addressed issues related to the impact of climate change and social security and NATO's actions. In the next slides, I will present information contained in these three editions of the report. First, I would like to highlight the impact of climate change on public health and health systems. In Europe alone, over 61,000 deaths were attributed to heat waves in 2022, with women experiencing 56% more heat-related fatalities than men. The rising number of hospitalization and medical emergencies has placed enormous pressure on healthcare systems. Additionally, climate change increases the risk of infectious diseases, such as malaria driven by biodiversity loss and closer contact between humans and animals. This overload of health services not only affects civilian population, but also weakens the capacity of national and NATO's military support systems. Overall, the consequences include a deterioration of both physical and mental health across affected communities. Drought and heat waves are significantly reducing crop yields and the availability of fresh water. In 2022, cereal production in Europe will be 9% with maize being particularly affected. Additionally, food storage, transportation, and fisheries and suffering due to ecological degradation. These factors increase the risk of regional famines and social unrest. Okay. Extreme weather events have increasingly disrupted transportation networks and electricity grids. For example, the floods in Slovenia in 2023, wildfires in Canada in 2023, and storms in Norway in 2024 caused significant damage. These disruptions impact not only civilian population, but also military logistic, complicating operational capabilities and response efforts. There is an increasing reliance on military support during civil emergencies. For example, in 2023, over 2,200 troops were deployed in Canada to combat wildfires. Similarly, NATO's and Kosovo force have supported local authorities during floods and fires. However, frequent deployment of military forces for disaster relief may reduce their readiness for defense operation. An important and emerging factor is the increased vulnerability of marginalized groups due to climate change. Women, children, and other marginalized communities are disproportionately affected by its impacts. This highlights the critical need to integrate human security and gender perspectives in NATO's climate security policies to ensure inclusive and effective responses. Finally, but most visibly, climate migration. Extreme weather events cause both internal and cross-border displacement. This put significant pressure on essential services such as food, water, energy, healthcare, communication, and transportation. Additionally, it hampers the ability of national authorities and armed forces to respond effectively to multiple threats happening at the same time. This is not about adding climate to NATO's agenda. It's about redefining security itself. We now understand that climate insecurity affects food and water supply, migration flows, political legitimacy, energy systems, and digital infrastructure. In this sense, NATO is becoming more than a military alliance. It's becoming a platform for ecological and societal resilience. And final thoughts, climate change is not only about rising temperatures, it is about shifting the foundation of global security. It produces social consequences that are harder to measure but deeply destabilizing. NATO must continue to evolve, integrating climate science, social impact analysis, and environmental policy into its core operation. The stability of the alliance will depend not only on tanks on traders, but on how well we prepare for the climate shocks that are already reshaping our world. I would like to emphasize that addressing this challenge requires a holistic approach that combines military readiness with social resilience and international cooperation. Only by understanding how environmental, social, and security issues are connected can NATO effectively safeguard peace and stability into the decades to come. And thank you for your attention. Okay.
I think I need to join into the discussion and take the floor right now. So it's not true what I said at the very beginning of our panel that we are going to proceed according to the program. Unfortunately, because this is my fault, there must be a change. So if you don't mind, now I would like to present to you the not quite different, very connected aspect of the security, namely the legal but also social security that is defined through the principle of equal treatment. Let me display my presentation. I hope it will work. Just give me a minute or even a second. I hope you can see my presentation. Is it visible? Can you confirm, please, that you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So
Of course, yes.
let's get started. I would like to outline the link that, in my opinion, exists between the priorities of the subsequent presidencies of the Council of the European Union and the equality agenda. Both issues are extremely important through the prism of appropriate functioning of the European Union. That's why I decided to connect them and try to assess whether and to what extent the ability of the EU institutions to push for the equality development, particularly through the legislation, is possible thanks to or is dependent upon the member states' decision to indicate the equality as the priority while leading the council's meeting. What is the council's presidency? It is a 6-month period through which each member state on equal footing leads the council's meeting, deciding on not only on the priorities of the council itself, but also on the priorities of the European Union as such. Why it is important? Because of the role that the Council plays in the European Union. It is one of the co-legislator along with the European Parliament, and without the Council, it is almost impossible to adapt legal acts apart from the special legislative procedure. I mean, under the ordinary legislative procedure, it is impossible, but there are some issues to which the parliament might decide on its own. But there are really very, very rare cases under the treaties. So leading the council means leading the political and first and foremost legal decision-making process in the European Union. As I have already mentioned, the Council's presidency is exercised on an equal footing, what means that the member state, according to the sovereignty principle, is entitled to lead this institution through 6 months every 13 years. This is right now because of the number of the member states that amounts to 27. What is important also from practical point of view is the fact that the member state is not leading itself the council. The presidency is performed its so-called trio. So the selected and subsequently leading the council's meeting member states are supposed to cooperate with respect to achieving their own priorities, but also the common priorities that at the very beginning need to be agreed between them. It means that, in fact, the Council's presidency might be considered to last 18 months, and this gives a kind of stability to the leading process, both of the Council and the Union. And it's really very important to remember that without this stability, integration processes wouldn't be able to be realized in a smooth manner. So the cooperation between the member states in trio or creating the trio is really very important. When it comes to the Poland, which has just finished its presidency, the trio is composed of, apart from Poland, the Denmark and Cyprus. I couldn't stand myself from sharing with you pictures from the opening of the Polish presidency. That was really great event, something that will be remembered at least by me for many years. But while talking about the Polish presidency, we need to keep in mind the very specific and difficult circumstances under which we took a leading role in the Council. First and foremost, with respect to the international environment, there is still, and there was at the time, the war in Ukraine. We were about the presidential election in the USA that has changed, for example, the competitiveness on the global market and the international relation between the states. And of course, the migration that is still a kind of pressure on the European Union and its member states. And against this circumstances, the Polish presidency decided to concentrate on 7 dimensions of security: defense and security, protection of people and borders, resistance to foreign interference and disinformation, ensuring security and freedom of business, energy transition, competitive and resilient agriculture, and finally health security. Quite innovative one, taking also into account the limited competences of the European Union with respect to this issue. And this all falls under the motto of the Polish presidency, that was Security Europe. What is missing, at least in my opinion, amongst these priorities, it is the another very important aspect of security, the legal security of the individual, that might be defined as a state of protection of equal treatment of individual, so the protection against discrimination as a factor of sine qua non of legal security. This is missing, and I found it quite surprisingly, because it means that apart from Hungary, Poland is the only one member state holding the presidency for years that has not decided to include directly and expressly into priorities any issue devoted to the human rights protection, particularly dealing with the equality principle. If we take into account the Czechia, the Sweden, the Spain, and the Belgium leading the Council's meeting through their times of presidencies, they all have decided to prioritize some aspect of human rights protection, or either expressly or implicitly under the topic, for example, of rule of law, democracy, and solidarity. This is unfortunately missed. This is what is missing among the Polish priorities, although the more detailed plan of action of the Council's different formats has enshrined some aspects of equality principle. Nevertheless, while talking about the promotion of the equality principle, it was not done under the Polish presidency. What are the practical aspects of this lack? I would like to show it and explain it against the equality agenda that was developed and advanced by the European Union through the former presidencies, which indicated equality as their priorities. And let's have a look at Czechia. And during this presidency, the EU adopted very important Women on Board directive. Then we have Sweden and its presidency and the adoption of the Pay Transparency Directive. Then the Spanish presidency that they played important role while negotiation on standard directives and gender-based gender-based violence directive. And then we have the Belgian presidency that was able to finish the legislative procedure, and thanks to which right now there is the time for the implementation on the directives on standards for equality bodies and the directive that is going to increase the protection against gender-based violence and domestic violence. While there is no priorities among the Hungarian priorities that were advanced during this member state's presidency, there is no equality achievement. And exactly the same comes when we are talking about the Polish priorities. There is not only non-advancement, but there is also a very important step back, as during the Polish presidency, the Council resigned from keeping the so-called horizontal non-discrimination directive on the agenda of the legislative process. And to conclude, why is it important to advance equality? Firstly, because it is the founding value of the European Union. Secondly, because it is operationalized through the aims of the European Union, among which equality is visible and is to be achieved through different aims, what means that it must be achieved in different aspects and at different levels. And the third point that I would like to explain is the obligation of the Union to mainstream gender equality and other aspects of equality. So resigning from outlining the equality amongst the priorities means resigning from promoting what lies at the basis of the integration processes. And this leads undoubtedly to very practical results. Let's have a look at the Gender Equality Index, which measures the state of equality between men and women in the European Union and its member states. The latest results show that we are more or less at in the middle of the second half of the road to the gender equality in the Union, and what means that we really need to concentrate on the equality agenda. If we will keep to the actual speed of advancing gender equality, we will achieve it in 64 years, as Commission explained. So this is very distant perspective still. And I would like to finish with the quotation: "The ability to eliminate a wrong is contingent on it first being named," by which is meant that a particular experience has been identified and publicly acknowledged as a wrong in need of legal and other forms of redress and subsequent prevention. Naming through, for example, placing equality amongst Council's presidency priorities is an important tool for revealing and otherwise hither harm, explaining its implications and labeling it as human rights concerns, grievance, and possible human rights violation. Once a wrong has been named, it is then possible to identify whether it is a form of discrimination and set about the task of securing its elimination through the adoption of legal and other measures. Lack of naming means inability to identify the problem and to formulate its solutions. Thank you very much for your attention. Once again, please forgive me that I need to leave almost right now. Unless you have some questions, please feel free to ask them right now, as I am unable to stay longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. And now I invite Mr. Marcin Szott to speak. His presentation focus on the role of lifelong learning as a tool for solving the socio-economic problems of the European Union, analyzed through the lens of European Union legal acts and the development of a learning society.
Hello, thank you, Ola. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude for opportunity to speak at this conference. Maybe let me start about my topic and introduction. Just 1 second. Okay. This study shows how lifelong learning has become a key European Union tool for solving problems in different parts of society, for creating the best condition for growth. Lifelong learning comes from the right to education. This right is protected by United Nations laws. In the mid-20th century, this idea grows stronger. Education should be available to everyone at all stages of life. It was seen as a basic human right to protect people and show respect for human dignity. In brief, the history of our concept of lifelong learning shows that it has evolved from a humanistic approach to an economically driven determinism, gradually becoming a pragmatically understood action strategy aimed at improving competence, especially those relevant from the perspective of the labor market. This process did not occur in an economic or political vacuum, but was the result of the shift in the socio-economic model that took place in the 1970s. This shift was associated in economic thought with a transition from the paradigm of the so-called welfare state to the neoliberal paradigm, and in the economy from employment in the manufacturing sector to employment to the service sector and so-called knowledge industries. In social terms, this means a transition to the knowledge-based society or an information society. This change were caused by repeated crises, economically, financially, and social since the 1970s. They become especially clear in European Union policies, but connecting education in new European goals was not the same in every country. Over time, European Union laws show a slow but steady change from traditional education, free and required for children, to adult education from continuous learning. Finally, to personalized learning, it means lifelong learning. as a tool for both society and economy. Documents. The analysis focus on selected strategy documents of the European Union from 1996 to 2020, authored by the European Commission or European Parliament, the Council of the European Union, and the Council of Europe, concentrating the implementation of long life learning and the development of a European education area. Year 1996 is a key year called European Years of Lifelong Learning, change how European Union see education, made it a top priority, policy priority. What happened? All European Union countries added lifelong learning to their national plans. Types of documents. The European Union used many tools for lifelong learning. For example, official recommendation, action plans, policy papers, for example, white or green, decision or programs. The first stage of shaping the idea of lifelong learning happened during the time of the Maastricht Treaty in 1992, and in related documents like the Council conclusion on our strategy of lifelong learning. The early 1990 marked the end of the Cold War and the beginning of a deep recession since 1991 to 1994. With a sharp rise in unemployment. At the time, Europe was falling behind the United States and Japan in economic strength. The European Union top goal became to boost its global role in the economic and the politics, and to fight growing unemployment. The European Commission, using the Maastricht Treaty as a legal base, stepped up efforts to bring national education policies closer together. The goal was to build a shared education area, even though education was still controlled by national governments. Work in this area meant matching national education goals with European Union goals in politics, the economic, and society. At the same time, there was a strong push to connect education more closer with the job market. Lifelong learning became a clear part of European Union policies. In 1996, the strategy of lifelong learning was introduced. It set out the main ideas and created a plan for how the concept would grow in the future. At the European Union level, the strategy set the following goals. First, the support learning new things. Second, the make school and business work more closer together. To fight social exclusion, another one, and promote learning 3 European languages. In the end, the treat money spent on training the same way as the money spent on business investment. A final decision that lifelong learning would from now on be a key idea in the European education policy, and also extra part of other European Union areas like employment was officially included in the Treaty of Amsterdam in 1997. The second stage in the shaping the idea of lifelong learning took place during the time of the Treaty of Nicea in 2003. It also included several important European Union documents, such as Lifelong Learning Memorandum, Plan for European Union Learning Area, European Union Council Agreement, or Education and Training Goals, and finally, Key Skills Recommendations. The goal to make the European Union the most competitive and dynamic knowledge-based economic in the world was clearly stated in the Lisbon Strategy of 2000. But the early 2000 must be understood in two key situations. First, there was an economic crisis, another one, caused by the collapse of the tech bubble, which led to high unemployment, especially for workers in weaker job groups. Second one, in 2004, the European Union grew to 27 countries. This was the biggest expansion in the history, and it put a heavy strain on the European Union institution and money. The goal of the Lisbon strategy were repeated in the memorandum on lifelong learning. This document says that lifelong learning is more than just education. It should be part of every area of life. In this paper, making a Europa area of lifelong learning reality, the European Commission shared a full action plan to make lifelong learning happen and to build a shared Europa education area. This document pointed out the main steps. The first, building a culture of learning. Second one, giving everyone better access to information and advice about learning options, increasing support for learning with more time and more funding, supporting basic skills, and finally creating new ways of learning, for example, including online learning like this conference. At the time, lifelong learning was defined as all learning done throughout life to improve knowledge, skills, and ability for personally, civic, social, or work-related reasons. The documents also listed 8 key skills that are important for lifelong learning. The third stage in the development of lifelong learning happened during the Lisbon strategy from 2010 since 2020, and Europe in the Europa 2020 plan for smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. This period also included other important European Union documents such as European Qualification Framework or Education and Training 2020 Strategy, and lots of more. The year 2008 and 2009 were a turning point for the next 10 years. A serious economic crisis, similar in size to the Great Depression of the 1930s, strongly influenced European Union policies and budget. The slow progress in improving education and training systems since the Lisbon strategy, together with high youth unemployment and a gap in need skills, led the European Union in 2008 to create the European qualification frameworks for lifelong learning. In 2009, the European Commission started working on the new plan called Europe 2020. The goal was to support smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. Once again, the focus was on consenting education and work through the idea of lifelong learning. Key points included competition, new ideas, and helping people find job. This time, economic growth was expected to come not only from knowledge, but also from protecting the environment. In the same year, the Council of European Union accepted the strategy called Education and Training 2020. This happened in 2009 The strategy gave member states a set of shared goals, ways of working together, and common points to compare progress. According to the document, education and training were supposed to help European Union citizens face challenges in the economy, population changes, climate and environment, and the new technologies. Spending money wisely on education and training was meant to help all people reach personally, social, and work-related goals. It was also meant to support steady economic growth and help people find and keep jobs. In addition, it aimed to build democratic values, stronger communities, active citizenship, and better understanding between cultures. Importantly, the European Union also focused on building creativity and new ideas, including business skills and entrepreneurship at all stages of education and training. In 2012, the European Commission introduced a strategy called Rethinking Education. This marked a clear move towards focusing on learning results and skills for starting business. Education and skills were clearly seen as a key resource for growing the economy. Conclusion. The analysis of European Union strategic documents show that education has become a key part of modern European policy. Education and training system are seen as the main way to shape the right kind of European Union citizen. This citizen needs to work well in today's world and handle future changes in society, the economy, and the job market. To do this, they must have the right knowledge, skills, abilities, and attitudes. Because the world keeps changing so quickly, learning can no longer be only for children and young people. It must become a lifelong learning process, something we do throughout our whole life. The European Union gives money to support this idea. This way of thinking again shows a shift, putting the responsibility for making Europe a succeed on individuals. Adding lifelong learning to education and job strategy has not been enough. This has led to new ways of things about learning culture and about education as a part of European ways of life. It is hard to disagree with that idea that learning and improving skills are important, but the learning becomes more and more connected to the goal of the economic growth, even if it's smart and sustainable growth. This shows that education is being used mainly as a tool instead of being seen as a core part of social life. Today, education it seems both as a part of the problem and part of the solution. For many economic, political, and social issues, in recent years, this list of challenges has grown a lot. Now, education and training system are expected to deal with falling competition, climate change, the digital transformation of society, different forms of extremism and populism, disinformation, changes in population, less trust in scientific knowledge, and growing social inequality. In the 2020, education and culture became very important. They help improve personally life, build stronger societies, and support Europa identity. They also help create jobs, keep communities united, and support fair and lasting economic growth. Today, education and culture are also key to for making the European Union stronger and ready for global challenges. More focus on new ideas and ready to lead the green and digital changes. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that very interesting presentation. And now I give the floor to Dr. Tomasz Marcinkowski, whose talk centers on the cooperation between the European Union and Ukraine in the field of public health as a form of support during the war and in the process of European integration.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Hello, I'm very honored to be here as part of this conference. This is my second time. I would like to honestly say that it's very, very good opportunity to debate on important issue. Thank you very much. I would like to thank organizers, especially CESRAN teams, and especially Professor Rahman Dak. I will try to start my presentation. Okay. One moment, please. Okay. I'm sorry, I have to turn off my camera. I think it will be better for my internet connection. One moment, please. Okay. Okay. I hope everything is okay. I'm also grateful to my that our university can participate of this conference the second time. My topic is very difficult because war is terrible, terrible for people, for those, for those who died and for those who remain, to remember them. Many of them require medical assistance for their body and their soul. The Russian attack on Ukraine in February 2022 was continuation of the aggression from 2014. It was a disruption of the regional security order, the regional order that we created in Europe after the Cold War. Of course, I will not talk about it in detail, but it is one of the important building blocks for building a new world order. And this is what this conference is about. Professor Richard Wu and Professor Louis Thoma also talk about it at the inauguration. They spoke very interestingly and very inspiringly. But of course, this is not my topic. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to share some reflections and data concerning the impact of the war in Ukraine on its healthcare system and the role of the European Union in supporting public health both within Ukraine and among the Ukrainian refugees. The topic I will present is very important not only in the context of the war, but also in understanding resilience and solidarity in the European health system. War creates serious challenges for health institutions. It limits access to treatment and medicine and changes how people perceive their own health. War affects both physical and mental health. This problem influences people who live in the war zones, but also those who flee, including healthcare workers. When doctors and nurses leave the country, the ability of the health system to function becomes weaker, of course. Another serious effect of war is the interruption of prevention programs, delays in diagnosis or stopping therapy. This can reduce the chance of recovery and even lead to death. In some cases, the type of weapons used during the war can cause specific disease in the future. So, the health consequences of war are long-term and may stay for many years after the fighting ends. The war has also made it difficult to get medicines in Ukraine. Prices increased and many drugs disappeared from pharmacies, especially for people with chronic disease. In 2022, the Ukrainian government changed the law to reduce the import of medicine from Russia and Belarus. It was a big problem. Ukraine also introduced electronic prescription for antibiotics and gave pharmacists new responsibilities, such as helping with vaccinations. One of the biggest problems is the growing shortage of medical staff. Many have died, been injured, or left the country. Often they do not return. As a result, medical staff still in Ukraine face more work and pressure, often without enough equipment, medicine, blood, electricity, and fuel. Of course, this affects their health and well-being. Even before the full-scale war, the average life expectancy in Ukraine was much lower than EU average. In 2019, it was 73.4 years, compared to 81.3 years in the EU. This means that Ukraine was behind other countries in health outcomes even before the war started. According to available data, the war has caused major losses in Ukraine's healthcare system. The United Nations has documented 1,682 attacks on healthcare infrastructures, including 84 ambulances and 699 hospitals destroyed. Nearly 200 healthcare workers have died and 137 were injured. Unfortunately, these numbers are not final and will probably increase while the war continues. Access to healthcare is especially difficult for Ukrainians living in areas occupied by Russia. As described in the article, Russia's denial of healthcare as a weapon of war, people are often forced to accept Russian citizenship, including medical workers. This situation limits access to medical help and creates ethical problems. Since the beginning of the full-scale attack in 2022, the European Union, USA, UK, and their allies strongly condemned Russia's aggression and introduced sanctions. they also started supporting Ukraine politically, economically, and militarily. Healthcare and humanitarian aid were part of this assistance. Over 6.3 million Ukrainian refugees were officially registered in Europe. Most were in Germany, over 1.16 million, and Poland, about 1 million people. The majority of refugees were women and children. As you can see, this is a cover of our book at our university, together with Dr. Joanna Lubimow and Lukasz Budzyński. We published a book about Ukrainian refugees in our city. The title in English is Ukrainian Refugees in Their Own Words. And part of this book includes stories told by Ukrainian women about the war and the difficult experience of leaving their country. Since the beginning, one important challenge in healthcare support for refugees was the difference in vaccination programs and general epidemiological conditions. Many refugees had a higher risk of diseases, such as measles, HIV, or tuberculosis. Antibiotic resistance and low vaccination rates, especially among children, were serious concerns. In many EU countries, refugee groups had higher disease rates than the general population. Of course, mental health support, especially for war trauma, was often not available in a sufficient quantity. As you can see in the table, there were big differences between EU countries in terms of how much their healthcare system were affected by refugees inflow. Central and Eastern European countries received the most refugees per 1,000 people, especially Czech Republic, Poland, and Estonia. Many of these countries had health indicators below the EU average. For example, life expectancy and healthy life expectancy were lower in Poland, Estonia, and Latvia. Mortality rates for cardiovascular diseases and cancer were also higher. Only Germany, on this chart, was above the EU average in preventable and treatable mortality. In terms of medical workforce, the number of doctors and nurses for 1,000 people was above the EU average only in Germany and Czech Republic. For diagnostic tools like MRI, CT, or PET, only Germany and Latvia were above average. This shows that Germany and Czech Republic were better prepared to handle the medical needs of refugees compared to countries like Poland and Estonia. There were, EU legal and organizational instruments. The support for Ukrainian refugees in the health sector was possible thanks to existing EU legal tools. The first important act was the Council implementing decision of 4th March 2022, which introduced temporary protection for people fleeing Ukraine. This protection gave refugees the right to stay, access healthcare, education, social support, and legal assistance in EU countries. It also ensured special help for unaccompanied minors and victims of violence. Another key mechanism was an integrated political crisis response, IPCR, activated on 27 February 2022. It allowed fast coordinated EU response through better information sharing, crisis meeting, quick decision on aid and sanctions, and real-time situation analysis. In March 2022, European Commission presented special plan to support member states in the situation. The plan included a registration platform, coordinated transport and relocation, a crisis plan for unaccompanied children, anti-trafficking action, extra support for Moldova, better cooperation with international partners, and reinforcement of Frontex, Europol, and EU asylum agencies. Another important tool was the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. Between 2022 and 2024, the EU and its member states provided 3.7 billion euros in humanitarian aid, including food, water, medicine, shelter, education, and financial support. In March 2022, rescue logistics centers were created in Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. The first EU medical evacuation, MEDEVAC, mission happened on 13th March 2022. In September 2022, the EU MEDEVAC hub in Rzeszów in Poland was opened, providing 24/7 medical and psychological care before patients were transferred to other European countries. So far, around 1,700 people have received help through this system. The EU for Health program allowed Ukraine to become associated with EU health policy. Ukraine officially joined the program in July 2022. The first focus was on mental health and psychosocial support for displaced people. War refugees experience strong stress due to loss, pain, and violence. A 2023 study among Ukrainian teenagers showed 35% had trauma symptoms, 32% had moderate or severe depression, 29.5% had signs of eating disorder, 20.5% were at risk of addiction, 17.9% had serious anxiety symptoms. The EU Health program founded 4 main projects. Peace of mind while you rise and measure. Peace of mind aimed to support mental health of 1,600 refugees and train 7,000 refugees and train 700 professionals, especially Ukrainian and Russian speaking. Well, you focused on helping refugee children and their caregivers in Italy, Greece, Hungary, and Romania, and train non-mental health staff and promoted awareness. EURISE created a network of Ukrainian Russian-speaking mental health experts and promoted e-health tools across Europe. Measure supported displaced people using the I Fight Depression application in Poland, Estonia, Germany, Bulgaria, Greece, and Hungary. It aimed to reduce the burden on healthcare system and share good practices. In June 2023, the European Commission and Ukraine signed a health cooperation agreement. It builds on earlier effort and supports Ukraine's long-term health development goals as part of the country path toward EU accession. The priority areas were identified: mental health and psychosocial support, especially for children affected by war, both in Ukraine and among refugees in the EU, and access to specialized rehabilitation. It was a key goal. The second, access to healthcare for refugees with temporary protection. including removing legal and administrative barriers and training healthcare workers to work with refugees. It also focused on integrating displaced Ukrainian health professionals into EU systems and improving access to vaccinations and health information. Third, repatriation and reintegration of Ukrainian patients, especially those treated abroad through Medivac. A special task force involving 19 EU countries coordinates this process. Fourth priority, health needs assessment for Ukrainian refugees, coordinated by the EU's HERA agency with World Health Organization, UNICEF, Gavi, and the Global Fund. The focus includes childhood vaccination, treatment of tuberculosis, HIV, and COVID-19. The EU also supports Ukraine with access to medical products and may include Ukraine in the joint procurement agreement. And five, support for rare disease care in Ukraine, including cooperation with European reference networks, and continued aid for the Rare Disease Center in Kiev's Okhmadrid Children's Hospital. And sixth priority is the continued funding of EU for Health project for Ukraine. And conclusions. The EU's support for Ukraine in the health sector is not only about solving short-term problems caused by the war. It is also about building long-term resilience and integrating Ukraine into European health structures. While emergency support, such as financial aid, evacuation, or psychological care, in essential cooperation through programs like EU for Health, shows a deeper strategy. It helps strengthen Ukraine's health system, making it more resilient in the future. According to resilience theory, supporting weak areas during crisis can improve long-term stability and performance. Furthermore, topics like cancer care or rare disease treatment go beyond the war context. They are part of a functional integration of Ukraine with the EU. These actions support Ukraine's EU accession process and shows that health is also a part of security and global cooperation. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope I have not prolonged my speech too much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. If you have any questions, please write them in chat. And in the meantime, I will answer the question directed to me. Okay, and thank you for the question. Climate change is becoming more and more important in NATO, and there are some mechanisms to deal with it. However, there is no single person who is fully responsible for climate change assessment and policy. NATO has created a Center of Excellence for Climate and Security. It is a new body, so for now we don't know much about its practical activities, only theoretical informations. It is known that this initiative aims to include climate issue in all parts of NATO's work, for example, a risk assessment, planning, and operation. And I think that's all in my opinion. Do you have any question?
Thank you.
Okay, no question.
Oh, I don't have any more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think this is the end. Thank you very much for keeping the time and for the interesting presentation. I think now I can invite you for a cup of coffee before the next panel.